Hey, I'm Sarah, and welcome if you're new, or welcome back to Thrills and Kills Booktube, where we talk about everything horror, thriller, and true crime related. So today I wanted to talk to you about a book I just finished called The Spite House by Johnny Compton. I loved this book. I got an ebook ARC advanced reader copy through NetGalley, and this is coming out February 2023. So I'm super appreciative for the chance to be able to read this. And I really loved this book. I was only about 50% of the way through with the book, and I was already like on the various like discords and like reading groups I'm part of and being like, oh my god, pick up this book, it's on NetGalley, or wait till it comes out, it's so good. So let's get into it and why I like this book so much. So this is a debut novel by Johnny Compton. He has written some short stories before, and he even has his own horror podcast, but this is his first novel. This is coming out through Tor Nightfire Publishing, like I said, February 2023. So I enjoyed it so much that I will be buying the physical copy when it does come out. So does that tell you anything? Despite the fact that I got a free copy, I'm willing to go spend money to have it on my shelves, and I don't have much shelf space left. So this is a huge honor. Now we are following a family. So it's a father and his two daughters. We've got Eric, his daughter Des, who is about 18, and then his daughter Stacy, who's about 7 or 8. So Johnny Compton is an African-American male, and so in his book he has written this from the perspective of an African-American family, which I really appreciated. I don't have many books written from that perspective, and that was it was enjoyable and eye-opening, and we'll get into it, but there were some themes that were discussed that really would not have done justice if it was written through any other point of view. So let me give you a little synopsis. So I said we're following Eric and his two daughters. Something has happened, and we're not quite sure what. You'll find out throughout the book, but something has happened to cause him and his two daughters to be on the run. And they were living in Maryland, and now they have found their way down to Texas. So he is taking odd jobs here and there where people don't need to ask for his identity or license or any of that, social security number. They're paying under the table in cash, and these are all jobs that are kind of, I don't know, morally gray. So his two daughters are staying in a motel while he's hopping around working these odd jobs, and they're just trying to stay afloat. The mother, his ex-wife, is back in Maryland, and there's mentions made of her, but it's never explained why she's not with them or what happened. Again, obviously you find out as the book progresses. So he is looking for his next job, trying to line up what they're going to do next as they're making their way through Texas, and he comes across an ad for someone to basically be a caretaker at this house. Now this is not a normal caretaking job, and this is not a normal house. This is what's considered a spite house. And so I had to look this up. A spite house is sort of a nickname for when you kind of are in a squabble, or you have a fight with, let's say, the town zoning board or a neighbor or the HOA, and you want to spite them. So you will build a house that is meant to be offensive in some manner. So if you Google spite house and look at images, you'll probably see really tall, thin buildings because they're trying to obstruct someone's view. That's a pretty common reason to build a spite house, but there are some pretty famous ones, particularly in Boston. There's one in San Francisco that if you go read about them, that's pretty interesting. I grew up in a town that had its own spite house. There was this house right as you would drive into the downtown area of this small village that I lived in. So pretty much everyone had to drive by the house every day, because if you were going to CVS, if you were going to the post office, the grocery store, like it was all downtown, you had to go by this house. So on the side of the house, they painted it all kinds of crazy colors and a face sticking its tongue out. I'll put a picture here. So I grew up in a town with its own spite house. I just didn't know that was the term for it. So anyways, getting back to it. So he finds this advertisement, and it's asking for someone to come be a caretaker at this spite house in this town of Degener, Texas, and that he will be paid, or whoever will be paid very handsomely. Like we're talking 6 figures. However, this house, the reason they want a caretaker is because the owner of the land in the house is wanting to document paranormal activity. So already it's sounding slightly like The Haunting of Hill House, which is my favorite book of all time. However, that's kind of where similarities end. This is a fresh, unique take on the haunted house paranormal genre, which I really appreciated. I don't want to give you too much information because if you're going to read the book, I want you to see it firsthand for yourself and experience it without knowing too much information. But just know this is not your typical haunted house story. So yeah, he gets the job, obviously, or the book wouldn't go any further. So he gets the job, and his 2 daughters head out to this town of Degener, Texas, and meet this woman named Eunice Houghton, who is like a bajillionaire, and her family has basically ran this town for multiple generations, and everyone in town either works at the company she owns or like is a supplier to the company or has a family member who works there. So basically she kind of runs the town. Her word goes. She's a nice person, thankfully. She's not a despot or like a tyrannical mayor or anything like that. She doesn't even have an official capacity. It's just people kind of do her bidding. And things go awry in the house, as you would imagine with a haunted house story. And that's all I want to tell you about the book as far as the synopsis. So let's get into why did I like this book so much? Well, obviously there's, like I said, this fresh, unique twist on it being a haunted house or a ghost story. I've certainly never read anything that went quite like this. Enjoyed the perspective coming from an African-American family, and they're down in like rural Texas, and you can imagine that there would be some sort of tension there. That was a really fresh take on it. At least for me, I haven't read anything from that perspective. It does explore some very serious themes, including racism, love and loss of that love, grief, how grief and very extreme feelings such as like grief, fear, and anger can cause physical manifestations, and generational trauma is very clearly discussed in this book for multiple families. I would say that's actually the main theme, other than being a haunted house story. As far as the point of view, this was a little bit different. It starts off where you're getting flipping point of view between Eric and his older daughter, but then as the story progresses, you also get chapters told from the point of view of other main characters and even some ghosts and even some of the side characters. Where the author did a really good job is that each chapter told by a different narrator felt like the unique, distinct voice. I've read some books where it's like every single one of these sounds like the same character. You just slapped a title on the front of the chapter and said this was now being told by so-and-so. They all felt like a distinct voice. He did a really good job there. I will say it was too many. There were some side characters that maybe we didn't necessarily need, and he could have just told it from the perspective of the main characters, or even like kept 1 or 2 side characters rather than all of them. As the story unfolds, you are hearing everything from the point of view of the narrators, the various narrators. There aren't any flashbacks. If there is a scene that takes place in a different time period, it's still told through the first person of that point of view, that narrator, I liked that rather than just relying on flashbacks. That could have been very simple to do, but he took the harder route and he did it very well. The pacing was quite good. However, I'll say the first 25% of the book is all setup, character development of the main characters, helping you understand their motivations. Because I remember being like, dang, I'm at 25%. There is 75% of this book left to go. Like, where is this gonna go? And when I was on Goodreads, I did see a few people actually DNF'd it at like 15 or 20%. And I was like, no, just stick with it, because once you get past that and all the like the setup and the development is done, it's like bam, 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 bam. There's a lot of action. Like the moment they step in that house, there's action. It's not like your typical ghost story where it's a slow burn and something happens this week and then next week it's a little bit more. No, it's bam, bam, bam from, like I said, the moment they step in that house. So if you are reading it and you're thinking, oh, this is a lot of setup, just try and get past that 25% point, and I promise you there's a lot of payoff from there. Now, a few things that I thought could have been maybe fleshed out a little bit more or need a little bit more detail. There was 2 things. So that's why I think in the end I'm giving this like a 4 or 4.5 star and not quite a 5 star. Number 1 was the climax scene. So even though there's lots and lots of action, there very clearly at the end is a climax scene. That felt a little bit rushed and almost like, wait, I didn't quite get that. So I went back and reread that chapter and I understood it on the second time. But I think because it felt so rushed, I was like reading it quickly. I don't know if that makes sense. And then also there is an orphanage so the Spite House is up on a hill. It's very tall and thin because it has to fit on top of a hill. There's not much acreage. At the bottom of the hill is an orphanage and it's abandoned. And it is a big part of this story, or at least the motivations of somebody in this story, the orphanage is, but there's no explanation of why it was abandoned or when it was abandoned. We just don't know. So I think that if that had been explained, even in like a paragraph or 2, that could have lent more to the story and truly understanding of like where and when things just crumbled and went wrong in the past. So those are the 2 reasons I think, for me personally, holds it back from being a 5 star. But it is an extremely enjoyable 4 star, or I don't know, maybe it'll even be a 4.5 star. We'll see. But very enjoyable book. I really recommend it, especially if you like ghost stories. Things like The Haunting of Hill House, I think you'll really enjoy this fresh take. So if you even enjoy watching like those paranormal investigator shows on like Discovery Channel, because this woman, before she brings Eric in and his daughters, she's talking to paranormal investigators and she's trying to hear from them what they would do to try and document paranormal activity. And she's not looking for what they have because they keep telling her the same old that we see on all these shows. Like, oh, we're gonna monitor cold spots and electromagnetic frequency. And she's like, that's not gonna work. I know what's happening in this house. I just need you to document it, and that's not gonna work. And then when Eric comes, he tells her something different, which is how he wins the job or gets the job offer. So if you enjoy paranormal activity shows, I think you'll enjoy this because it kind of pokes fun at them in a way, and that was fun and enjoyable. So that's everything I have to say about The Spite House. Again, it comes out in February 2023. If you're on NetGalley, you could try and see if you could get a copy of it for free, an ebook version. Otherwise, you'll have to wait about 2.5 months for it to come out, and it's worth the wait, I promise. That's all I have for you today. Hope you guys are having a nice, happy, and healthy and fun holiday season, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.